Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you guys are having a good day. Today we're starting off over here at the storage facility because I want to grab some materials and then make my way back to the end, and we're going to wrap up End Week with a big project. I think it's time to explore the possibilities for terraforming the end. And this is something that I've done in the past and something I've really wanted to do again for a while, but never quite found the opportunity to until now. As you can see from my XP bar right now, I have been spending a little bit more time at the Ender. I've been trying to get as many Ender Pearls as I can out of that farm, and believe me, there's a lot of Ender Pearls to give. So my Ender Pearl box in there is fully restocked. We've got a bunch in here as well, but I have a few spare shulker boxes with me that I'm planning on filling up with materials from the overworld that we can take to the end for a terraforming project. And I'm thinking we probably want to bring a little bit of this natural stone with us as well, so that we can really make the place feel like a slice of the overworld that's been teleported almost to the end. So we're going to bring a bunch of stone, and I'm going to fill up a couple of these shulker boxes with dirt and grass as well. The grass I've got a fair amount of, but this chest up here doesn't seem quite so full, whereas the dirt I have a ton of, and I figure what we can end up doing is just getting the grass in there as a seed and then spread all of that to the dirt as we go. So I'm going to get on that, and I've got a few other things as well. I've got a village box here, I've got my tree box where we can throw a bunch of leaves up and around some kind of spruce logs and make some custom trees out there. We could even grow some regular saplings and stuff from scratch. What I want to do really, for those of you guys who might not be aware, is explore the possibilities of what you can do in the end compared to the Nether or the overworld, and how building in each of these environments is kind of different. And as I mentioned before, I want to use the island near our Ender as a base of operations. So I'm trying to see if I can... Yes! Oh, we made it. Okay, cool. So while you're in a crawling or flying position, it is actually possible to get through the end gateways like that without having to throw an ender pearl through them, which is a little bit more reliable, because I've noticed a couple of times if I don't hit the bedrock on the other side, I can't really teleport through those gates 100% of the time. It sort of doesn't quite work out that way, and I don't want to throw an ender pearl through this and have it land in my enderman farm down there, which is currently deactivated, because wow, that thing causes a lot of lag when it gets up to speed. I didn't want to throw an ender pearl through this portal and then have it reappear on the other side and end up teleporting me into the void by smacking the side of one of those blocks and then falling. That kind of thing could be a little bit unpleasant. So until we have the area around here a little bit more decorated, I'm probably going to try and, use trapdoors or something to kind of push myself into a crawling position and crawl through the end gateways that way. It seems a little bit more reliable. But all the way out here at the end of our leaf path, and for some reason the sound of fireworks has disappeared. That's a little bit strange. But what I'm going to do is terraform a section of the end out here, and I kind of want to make it one of these 3 islands. And I'm wondering, maybe we should do this one over here, because this one feels a little bit smaller, but this one's got potential too. Oh, they're all so good. I don't know which one we should try. This one over here has the end city on, and I sort of like the idea of the villagers making land here. If we imagine the fiction of this world, the villagers have kind of come out to this dimension to explore it. I love the idea of them seeking out this city and finding signs of life and other stuff is happening here. So and congregating around this space like explorers would. There's also another end gateway right over there, which we might end up using in the fullness of time to take some shulkers back from this end gateway. So I'd like to start an establishment here. I would like to set up a kind of villager colony kind of thing. But let's talk a little bit about building in the end and how it differs from the overworld and the nether. Because, as you'll know, there is no day-night cycle here in the end. So beds can't be used by the player, and instead of setting your spawn point at one, they will explode if you try to use them, which kind of reminds players of the nether, and you might think that a lot of the other building restrictions that apply in the nether also apply in the end. But as we saw from the Ender episode the other day, you can place water in the end. And of course, you can place water as part of the dragon fight a lot of the time as well, because sometimes you need it to break your fall. So in terms of the restrictions in the nether that apply to stuff like liquids, you don't really have that problem in the end, which means it's possible to farm crops out here. If you place dirt and hoe it, then you can hydrate the farmland, you can grow crops the normal way, and it still is kind of more possible to live in the end than it is in the nether. It's certainly a little bit less dangerous without there being ghasts around and stuff that will explode the stuff that you're building. You know, the Enderman will mostly leave you alone, much like Zombie Pigman. They're sort of a neutral mob unless you aggro them a specific way. So in terms of the the safety of building here, aside from the void, it's actually a relatively safe space to build. And while the end seems like an inhospitable landscape, it's not really meant to be a cold biome. It's meant to be relatively temperate, and so grass blocks, when placed out here, will look kind of pale in the same sort of way that you find them in, you know, mountain biomes and stuff like that, but in comparison to the rest of the landscape, in terms of how pale everything else is anyway, it's actually not too bad. It's certainly not quite the pale bluish color that they get in, like, you know, ice plains biomes and that kind of stuff in the grass around there. It's actually probably like a duller version of plains grass, I suppose. And so creating a custom landscape around here would actually be quite nice, and that's kind of why I want to tackle it in today's episode. You'll find that leaves and that kind of stuff takes on the same color, but of course remember that there are birch leaves and spruce leaves you can use that will keep their color regardless of what biome they're in. So if you're finding these leaves don't quite look bright enough for you, maybe give some of those leaves a try as well. One other thing to remember is because there's no daylight and no skylight around here, you can run into a couple of problems with water in very specific circumstances. I've got my Frostwalker boots in here. Let me quickly put those on so I can show you. For example, right, you have a block of water. Let's just place a water source down here. And with my Frostwalker boots on, if I move around near this water source, it's going to freeze up and turn into frosted ice. Now, because we're here in the end, and because there is no day cycle and no night cycle, that's not going to unfreeze naturally. And so ice will not break under any circumstances unless it has some block light nearby. Some player-placed light is the only thing that will cause this to revert back into a water source, and then I could freeze it up again with my Frostwalker boots if I wanted to. So if you use Frostwalker boots regularly, that's something worth bearing in mind. But notice, even though this place is seemingly quite a cold and desolate landscape, ice will not freeze over on its own, so you won't end up with that being a problem as long as you're not wearing your Frostwalker boots at the time. Although, to be honest, it might be kind of cool to make some bridges out of ice and have a sort of bridge that you could light up as you walked over it with your Frostwalker boots, and then the ice would break behind you here in the end, and then the Enderman wouldn't be able to follow you because it would all be turned back into water, and they don't like going in water. Anyway, the other thing to bear in mind about the lack of light in the end is that trees will not grow naturally unless there is a light source placed nearby, because trees normally need skylight to grow. You'll probably have noticed if you've been trying to farm trees that they don't tend to grow from saplings at night, but if you place torches nearby, the artificial light will be enough for them to grow by. So if you run out of wood while you're building in the end, but you've brought some saplings with you, and maybe you don't have enough bone meal around or anything like that, and obviously it's hard to get access to bone meal out here in the end, you will still find that you can grow trees naturally as long as there is torchlight or end rods or something around that can provide some block light nearby, enough for the plant to grow. So I'm going to stay out here for a while, and I'm going to do a bit of terraforming. We're going to try and mix in a few natural elements of the overworld into the landscape. So like I said, we're going to be making some formations out of stone and grass and that kind of thing, as though the villagers that we're eventually going to move here have been terraforming the environment to better suit what they like from the overworld. I have seen a few people make some really interesting modified end cities where they've stuck with the same design but used like oak wood and stuff like that. I saw one of those on the Minecraft Reddit just recently, and that looked like a really neat idea to me. So maybe we can try and take inspiration from the architecture of the end cities. Maybe the colonists who've arrived here decided that they should mimic the architecture of the local environment, or maybe they can salvage bits of that to turn into some of their own dwellings. So you could have a village-style house, but made out of purple and endstone brick. Might be a couple of good ideas to start out with, especially if you guys want to follow along and do some similar end modification of your own. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time making this area look pretty, and I will see you guys on the other side. Hey folks, welcome back. So I have been out here in the end developing a bit of a style for this area. I kind of thought, how can we make this into something a little bit more than a standard terraforming project? How can we make it feel like the overworld and the end are interacting and things are getting a little bit weird? I started out with this in the ground here, and I thought there could be some kind of weird spirally kind of theme to the terrain here. So something could, like, it's like they've seeded stuff like grass and dirt and stone, and it's all supposed to grow organically, but the end's idea of what grows organically is a little bit weird. And so what I ended up with was this. I decided to carve out sections of a stone kind of cliff here, and what this actually looks like is more of like a valley with the ends of the valley leading out towards the end city in the distance. And I really like this as like a way of scene setting a little bit, of kind of drawing your eye over to the end city. Not that it really needs it because it's all big and up here, but then I like the idea of having like a valley directing you towards that. And in the walls of the valley, all of these stone formations where the stone is supposed to have sort of naturally formed, but, or maybe even like the Endermen have built this. They've been trying to emulate the overworld, and they've seen cliffs and stuff like that, but they didn't quite get it right. And what they built instead was these sort of more geometric patterns, almost like a bismuth crystal. If you guys have ever seen how bismuth crystals generate naturally, they've got this really interesting inward spiral pattern that I wanted to emulate a little bit here. So this area is actually quite large. I've got a decent amount of just rolling green land. Over here, we got some oak trees that have all grown naturally thanks to torchlight being close to them. And I've been bone mealing the grass here and there. And here's a fun fact that I didn't realize when I was introducing the way the end and stuff like that works. You don't get flowers here. You only get grass and tall grass. You don't get any kinds of flowers growing. So any flowers we want to bring into this environment, we'll have to bring in ourselves from outside. We'll have to go to the flower farm or pick them elsewhere, and then introduce them to this environment instead of them spawning here naturally. So that's something that's a little bit different from the end as opposed to the overworld. Another one of those rules that you don't really know much about until you come out here and do this stuff. And that's what I want to encourage you guys to do. If you're interested in a bit of inspiration from this series, as well as just the stuff for how to do farms and things like that, just consider how some of these elements can change a little bit, and consider going a little bit different, going a little bit into a different dimension to build something that looks like the overworld. Like, you can terraform the nether as well. Not my favorite thing to do because ghasts mess with stuff too much, whereas the enderman here will only pick up the occasional dirt block, and they usually put it down again within range. Like, I've seen a few guys pick up grass blocks and then just leave them kind of over there, and all I need to do is go and collect them up again. As long as you don't look at the enderman, they leave you well enough alone. So I felt like this would be a good opportunity for a kind of custom biome project, I guess. And if we head up into the sky and take a look at this from above, it's actually looking pretty cool. We've got a sizable amount of space covered, and the only reason I've stopped is because I'm kind of out of grass blocks, and the problem with the grass spread mechanic is, of course, it needs light. So I'm having to spread dirt over here and wait for the torchlight to allow the grass to grow a little bit further. So what I'm thinking we can do to wrap up this episode, and to give you guys a bit of an idea of what I plan to do with this place ultimately, is to go and get some zombie villagers, or maybe even some regular villagers if we want to poach them from different areas. And I'm going to bring them to the end. Now, it's going to be a bit of a twofold task here, because we're going to have to cure or find a zombie villager and transport them to the end portal, which is going to be difficult enough in itself, especially if we're working with regular villagers. We've got a lot of minecart track to lay. But that's only half of it, because then we have to bring them out here, and that's going to be a little difficult. Now, we do have the end gateway over there, which could be a point of entry. That is the northwestern end gateway, so basically the one just to the left, like 18 degrees to the left of our northern one that takes us to the ender. But alternatively, we could set up some sort of slime block flying machine, and if the villager is in a boat or a minecart, then we should be able to propel them across the void, and they will just end up somewhere here. Now, I don't know exactly how that's going to work out. I'll need to do a couple of calculations once we get the villager or zombie villager or whatever it is into the end. But Endermen aren't going to mess with villagers. Only zombies are really the kind of thing, and zombies and pillagers really other things that are attracted to and will try and actively harm villagers. So once we get it into the end, the villager can basically just be left to roam around a little bit if they want to. They're probably not going to just walk off the island, and in the meantime, the Enderman will just leave them alone. So I'm going to head back to the overworld. I'm going to find the nearest village to the end portal, or alternatively, find a zombie villager that we can lure through the nether maybe into the stronghold, and then we're going to transport it out here, and it's going to be our first villager in the end. Oh boy, it was an ordeal getting these two here, I tell you. First of all, there were 3 villagers left over in the village where I originally got Mendelssohn, so I figured I would bring those with me. 2 of them were really keen on breeding after a certain point in the day, so I tried to get 2 of them through to the nether. They ended up trying to breed. I ended up hitting one, and they both went back to the overworld. So in the end, I had to do a bit of a switcheroo. I left the one who I hit behind, so hopefully I don't get too much negative gossip, because I would actually like to trade with these guys at some point. Then, taking them through the nether, I got shot at by a ghast. Couldn't return fire because I was in a boat. The villager got set on fire and lived. So I went back, I brewed some health potions, I brewed some fire resist potions, healed the guy up, made sure he had fire resistance, took him through to the end portal room where he walked off the island. So I had to painstakingly lever him up from the floor using pistons, ended up trying to drive the boat into the end portal, and then I realized that you can't take stuff through portals if it's a passenger in a boat, so we both fell through the portal, and then whilst trying to get back out of the portal with the villager, I ended up going through to the end and having to repeat the whole process with the second villager that time, and in the end, I managed to get them both through here, both by pushing them into the portal, or in the case of the second guy, I just used more pistons to push him up into the portal and then broke the boat. He went straight through, and now here we are with 2 villagers in the end. That was a journey, and they have another journey ahead of them right now, because we are about to assemble a flying machine that we can use to take them out to the far reaches of the end. Now, I've lined them up basically on the axis of this gateway, which is the one, thank you for the beacon there, which is the one that's basically nearest that end city that we've seen. Now, this one is going to be going out on a slight angle, but that means that if I set them off from here, I will probably end up with them colliding more or less with the area that we've terraformed. That is my hope, at least. So in this case, we're going to try and assemble a slime block flying machine. Going to start it over here, row them onto it, and then launch the entire thing from a platform here in the end. It's going to be really quite entertaining to do, but I think we can get it done. So if we build these 2 kind of U-shapes, these kind of long U-shapes, 2 blocks in the middle so that the boat can be rowed onto that, and then we can assemble a flying machine attached to this. We want a sticky piston going this way with an observer facing downwards onto a slime block here, and we want the opposite on the opposite side like so, and then we'll build another U-shape on that side. And because each of these is connected by slime blocks, hopefully there should not be more slime blocks than the pistons can push, and then we'll be able to have the observers facing downwards. That should work just fine. Fingers crossed. Oh boy, this has been quite the ordeal right now, but I think we should be able to pull this off with just a little bit more removal of these for a start, and then just a little bit more effort to get these observers in place. Okay, the flying machine is assembled. Let's see if we can make this work. Oh gosh, I am terrified of what is about to happen, but also kind of excited to see if we can get these guys out to the end first time. And we're going to be riding with one of them. We're going to be effectively, passengering with these guys just to make sure that everything is okay, and to make sure that the chunks stay loaded as we travel, because otherwise we could end up stranding these guys in the void with the flying machine broken, and we don't want that to happen. So all I should need to do is place a block over the top of one of these observers from a sitting position in the boat, I guess, and then we should be good to go. Either that, or I'll have to jump into the boat manually. Let's detach all of the blocks from this as we go. Make sure that it's not got anything else around the outside. Looks like we are clear. Now, which observer is it going to be? In the update order, I think it's probably going to be this one. So let's do our best here. Let's place a block on top of this observer, and we're off. And it works. Amazing. We are traveling across the void. I'd better get my fireworks ready just in case any kind of loading issues happen over here. But we are going to be traveling across the void a block at a time, heading north on about -29, -30. Excellent. I cannot wait to see if we land okay. Oh my gosh, I can see the Ender. It just came into view over the horizon. That means we're probably about like halfway across the void now. Yeah, we're at like Y or Z rather, 560 something. 570. That's so cool. It's been really eerie for the last little while. It almost felt like we were moving backwards because of the way these flying machines are moving and not being able to see anything relative to it. But we're passing directly over the Ender, which means we will probably end up right in the middle of the area I've been terraforming. I thought we were going to be off to one side a little bit, but I think we are going to make it. That is incredible. As long as nothing goes wrong in the next 5 minutes or so, we should be good to... Oh, the lag spike there. Oh boy, the lag spike there gave me a second thought for a second. But oh, we are almost there, my friends. Almost there in our flying chariot of slime blocks. And this is possibly one of the weirdest things I've done, but I'm so happy with doing it. And it looks like we are just passing to the right of the area I've been terraforming. And look at the amount of Endermen spawning on that island over there. I need to be in first person to make sure I don't look at them, but that is a lot of Endermen over there on that island. Kind of gives you some scale and, like, you know, point of comparison for the Ender. But yeah, it looks like I will end up on this island in front of us, which means I'll probably have to set up a safe path from that island to over here if I want my villagers to be kind of hanging out on the island to our left right now. But then once we've got them over there, all I should need to do is lay down some beds and some points of interest like workstations, and they will settle in just fine. Look at that. Freaking incredible. We made it, and as long as I can make a quick little disembarking ramp on that side, we should be right as rain pulling these guys off the slime block flying machines, rowing them around there, and getting them set up over at the new... I've been thinking of this as like the Ender Park, I guess. It's not really got a village set up over there quite yet, but we should be able to make one at some point. I'm not sure if we're going to carry on End Week into next week. Do let me know in the comments if you've been enjoying these videos, because I will absolutely continue this project into next week if you guys are feeling it. But in the meantime, I think we just want to get these guys set up over there, and the potential is there for us to come back in the future and turn this into a thriving villager colony. Yes. Yes, we've made it, and his friend is waiting for him around here already. Great stuff. All we need to do is establish a couple of points of interest for them, beds and workstations, and these guys will fit right in. I'm going to go and do that before we let them out of the boats, though. There we go. He's warped in from a distance. Now, let's open up this... Wait, do we not have my village box here? Did I leave that somewhere? I think I might have actually left that over in the stronghold. Dang it. Okay, I'm going to have to go back for that, because I don't think I have any... I don't think I have any wool out here for beds or anything. You don't need a bed in the end anyway, but if you're a villager, it helps with village life and breeding and that kind of stuff. And so I think I left my box in here. I tried in vain to get one of the villagers to pathfind to a workstation while I was trying to move them around, so I think I have left that workstation box somewhere in the stronghold portal room, maybe. So let me go back and grab that, and probably gather some supplies for beds as well, and then we should be able to set these villagers up with a nice, cozy new living area. Well, I couldn't find my shulker box. I could not find the brown shulker box that I keep the profession blocks in, but I went back to where I dropped off a bit of stuff earlier, and I did find a few barrels, and of course we have a few boxes around here with stuff in that can be used to make workstations. Like, you can make a bookshelf and some slabs into a lectern, for example. We've got a couple of barrels here as well. We could make more of those. There are a few other bits and pieces like stone I think we can use for some things, and we can always bring some other workstation bits another time if we need to. So let me drop off this cobblestone and stuff in here, a few of the crafting materials I'd use to make the flying machines, and I've got 10 beds. Now, it's going to be incredibly important that I do not right-click on any of these myself, because as you remember, for players, beds explode in the end. But for villagers, they should not. So I'm interested to see exactly how this ends up, and hopefully, if there are enough beds, they should exhibit the normal villager behavior of wanting to breed to fill up the beds, and we should actually get a villager population out here before too long. Now I'm going to have to remember very careful not to right-click on any of these beds. We're going to be locked into the villager's routine a little bit more than we are in the overworld, because we won't be able to sleep in a bed to skip the night. We're basically going to have to do a bunch of other stuff and wait for the villagers to wake up. But of course, the dangers of the night that are usually present in a villager situation are not going to be present here, because we don't have to worry about mobs coming out at night, because the only mobs around here are Endermen and the occasional Shulker, but they're all locked up in the end city over there. So in theory, these villagers should be quite keen to breed if we have a bunch of workstations and beds around here. Let me quickly craft up a couple of lecterns, because I feel like it's going to be nice if these folks are librarians. Let me find the recipe for a lectern. There we go. Nice and easy. We've got a few of those, 7 to be precise, and I'm going to risk things a little bit, but also try to try to curb my enthusiasm for right-clicking on these beds by surrounding them with other objects. That might work out, and we can have a lectern by the head of each of these beds. And hopefully we should see these guys adopting the librarian profession pretty quickly. One of them already has, which is great. What have you got, my friend? Fire aspect. That's probably not going to go over well over here, but all we need to do is let these guys out now, and hopefully this guy should pathfind to his workstation. The other guy should find work as well. Look at him. He's already going to the new village. It's so cool to see these guys already sleeping. Look at that. A physical impossibility for the player, but possible for villagers. These wonderful guys. And now, if I try and sleep in there, I'm probably going to cause a bit of a disturbance. But this guy, nope, okay, he's going in the bed as well. We'll not try and right-click on him while he is awake. We're going to let these guys sleep, I think. But this has been quite the adventure, and I'm looking forward to seeing if we can do more with this village in future. But that's going to be it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. I can barely believe what I'm seeing behind me, but it's a reality, folks. We have a village started in the end. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like on it if you did. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.